Hello everybody. We're in a series we're calling The Character Traits of an Acts 2 Leader. The vision of the Acts 2 Network is to restore the dynamics of the Acts 2 church in our world, and we're acknowledging that in order for that to happen, we have to have leaders who understand those dynamics and live accordingly. So we're working our way through the leader acrostic that says that Acts 2 leaders live with integrity, they establish healthy relationships, they accept leadership, they demonstrate personal growth, they effectively serve, understanding that their task is not just to do tasks, it's to develop the people that God brings around them to accomplish those things. And then ultimately, the Acts 2 leader resolves to finish well. Today we're looking at the first E in the acrostic leader that we're calling establishes healthy relationships. And we're talking about the character trait of being a reconciler, a peacemaker, not a peacekeeper, not somebody who will say anything just to get people to get along, but actually a resolver of issues, somebody who is committed to not only helping people work through conflict, but actually turn that conflict into a stepping stone toward intimacy. And so in today's session, I want to take just a couple of minutes to whet your appetite about a couple of the dynamics that are critical if you're going to help people walk through conflict. First of all, you've got to understand that conflict's inevitable, and that there are really only three relational dynamics or three roles that you can take in a conflict. Paul said in Galatians 5:14 and 15, love your neighbor as yourself. If you keep on biting and devouring each other, watch out or you'll be destroyed by each other. Paul wouldn't have said that to the church if that wasn't going on in the church. And let's be honest, it's going on in the church to the 21st century. And so we have to understand it's inevitable, and we have to understand that when conflict happens and we're the leader, it's our job to help them resolve it. There are only three roles that are typically involved in a conflict. In fact, there's a psychologist many years ago by the name of Karpov who discovered this and laid it all out. We often refer to it as the drama triangle. We all know drama in our lives. It's often referred to as the drama triangle. There are only three roles. Role number one is the victim. Oh, poor me. They've done me wrong again. Things like this always happen to me. There's the persecutor. He did it to me. He's so mean to me. She yelled at me. That's what the victim tends to position somebody as, and the persecutor is often saying, well, just get over it, build a bridge, what's wrong with you, pull up your big boy pants, that kind of stuff. And then there's the rescuer who's always coming in and saying, oh, can't we all just get along? Come on, isn't it okay? And the rescuer stepping in, trying to get the victim and the persecutor together. So the victim goes to the rescuer and says, you're not going to believe what they said to me this time. And the rescuer says, oh, you deserve so much better treatment than that. And they're trying to do well. Then they go to the persecutor and say, so-and-so told me what you did to them. Well, you know what happens is the victim finds out that you went to their persecutor and it makes them mad. Well, how dare you say that? I was confiding in you and you broke my confidence. And now you've become their persecutor and they've become your victim. And now the persecutor's mad at all of you because you put them in that position. And the drama gets bigger and bigger because they all start looking for friends who agree with them. And before you know it, you've got this huge problem in the church. There is an alternative though. And that is when somebody comes to you and says, woe is me, terrible things have happened. You make a choice. You're sitting there praying. You're standing there listening while this person is talking to you, making you aware of the conflict, whether it's a victim coming to you or a persecutor coming to you or a rescuer. You're making a choice as the leader, and you only have three choices. I can be the rescuer and play the oh poor thing, I'm so sorry that happened to you, and reinforce the idea that they are victims. Or I can step into the persecutor's role and say, wimp, get over it. That doesn't help. Just you're adding more injury to the hurt. Or you can direct them to the Lord. You can say to them, everything that happens in your life is Father filtered. So let's ask what God is trying to do in this circumstances. There are two key verses that you refer to when you're helping somebody process through this thing. Romans chapter 8, verse 28 says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for good to them that love the Lord, and are called according to his purpose, verse 29, and his purpose is that we be like his son. So whatever is going on, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, God wants to weave this into part of the journey of you becoming like Christ. The second verse is 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. No temptation has seized you except that which is common to man. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you're tempted, he'll also provide a way out so you can stand up against it. That says to me that God's not going to allow anything to be more than you can bear, which means you can bear it. You can deal with this. God actually wants to work it into a pattern for good, and he trusts you to be able to do that, or he would have held it off from you. He would have given you a way of escape. So you put those two things together, and you lovingly say to this person, what do you think God's trying to do here? What do you think God's trying to teach you here? How can you cooperate with God's process of making you more like Christ here? How can you handle this in a more Christ-like kind of way? Regardless of what the other people or the other person is doing, how can you make sure that you're operating in a Christ-like kind of way? And when you do that with real, genuine concern, you listen with genuine compassion, they will lean in and say, I'm not sure I know how to do that. Would you help me get there? And when they do, you're ready. Because the Bible tells you what to do when they come to that place where they say, you know, I really do want to resolve this. I really want to know what God is doing. I really want to get through this. You direct them to Matthew chapter 18. Chapter 18 lays out the four steps to resolving conflict in a godly way. Matthew 18:15, if your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault, just between the two of you. If he listens to you, you have won your brother over. You say, you go sit down and talk with that person. You may find out that they didn't mean it the way it sounded. You may find out that they don't even realize what they said. But at the very least, you go and you talk to them and say, you know, we need to work through this because I want our relationship to be intact. I don't want it to be damaged. And if they're frightened and you're the leader, it's okay for you to say, I will take you. I will go with you. But when you get there, you're not the third party. You're just there for moral support for the two of them to have this private conversation to say, what are we going to do to resolve this? If they agree to that and they have that conversation and they're more entrenched in the issues than it looked like at first, then you go to the next level. Verse 18 says, or 16 says, if he will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of two or three witnesses. Now that does not mean go find two or three people that are on your side to go beat them up. That means find two or three people you both have confidence in, who can come in and arbitrate, who can mediate, who can say, let me help you think through this reasonably and logically and intelligently. And so those two or three witnesses sit down together and you pray together and you talk together and you try to find resolution to the issue. If they still refuse, even at that, then there's a third level, verse 17. If they refuse to listen, tell it to the church. That does not mean get up with a microphone on Sunday and announce it to the congregation. It means go to the authorities of the church. If somebody in the church is operating in that mean-spirited, divisive kind of way, then you go to one of your elders or your deacons or your pastor and you say, you know, I got a problem and I've tried to follow Matthew 18 here, but nothing seems to be working. I really need you to step in and adjudicate this issue. And you as the leader then have to make a decision about what's happening, what's going on biblically. I've facilitated many of Matthew 18 conversation over the years, whether it's helping with the first level, being a part of the second level, or ultimately stepping in as an authority figure in the third level. The goal is always reconciliation, making peace, and making sure the relationship then goes to the next level. How can that go to the next level? Well, now you've got somebody, you get through this, you've got somebody to say, man, you were willing to work through the hard stuff with me, weren't you? You must really care about me. It's a painful process, and you're willing to go through that with me. Now your relationship has just leaned in a little bit closer so that God can use you. The Bible actually gives us a fourth level in Matthew 18. It says if they won't even hear, if they won't submit to the authority of the church, then it says treat them as it would a pagan. How do you treat a pagan? You love them. You care about them. You pray for them. You pray that Jesus will touch their heart and bring them to Him and begin healing in their lives. At the end of the day, human conflict is natural. It's normal. It happens in the best of families, in the best of churches, even among leaders who are fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ, and Acts 2 leaders. At the end of the day, the only real question is, will we be agents who stir that conflict up and make the problem bigger? Or will we be agents of reconciliation, bringing every circumstance to Jesus. Matthew 18 also says, in verse 19, I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where two or three come together in my name, there I am with you. We'll talk more about the principle of agreement in this series of sessions on the traits of an Acts 2 leader. For now, please understand, reconciliation is possible when Jesus is in the midst. When Jesus is in the midst, healing happens. As you help people work through conflict, as you work through the conflicts that are an inevitable part of your life, commit yourself to do it God's way. Follow the biblical model. God bless you, Acts 2 leader.